Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Nobody wants to live in disarray, live in clutter. It just, you don't feel like you're living your life the way it should be because you're always focusing on the mess over there, the mess over there. We're going to talk with a professional organizer today about the 6 myths that other organizers will tell you, and they're not true. And when you find out what organizing and decluttering your life can do to your life mentally, this will be a game changer. She's a game changer, very different than other organizers. She's not cleaning your house. She's cleaning up your life. She's Emily Guderian. She's back with us. Welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah, we often get deep every time we get together, but for good reason, because we have identified, and we're going to get into the 6 myths in a second, that when there's clutter, there's usually, or disorganization, there's usually a reason for that. And that goes back to what's going on in your life. It's not that we're messy. Some people walk around and say, well, I'm just a mess. That's the way it is. No, it's really not. And recap for us what we've talked about before in terms of that connection.
Well, we've talked about a lot of stuff, but I think about what other organizers do, and I'm not meaning to bash. I'm just looking at it from the perspective of a customer, because I'm usually the customer in all the other areas of life. An organizer will come in, they'll do their thing, they'll work the magic, and then probably 6 to 8 months later, they'll get a call back from the same client looking to do the same thing. So you've got people that are continually stuck in these cycles of, they get organized, they clean it up, it's a clean slate, it feels great, and then surely over time they're back in that that chaos, that overwhelm, that disorganization. So when you see that, you know that it's more than just the system that's not working. There's something else. I've been trained in emotional release tools probably for about 10 years. And so it was with that training when I would go into people's homes and see like they were stuck. They were stuck because of something. Usually it's an emotion, almost always, and it's an emotion. And it's just, that's how that stuck emotion is manifesting in their life. It shows up in the form of clutter. For other people, it shows up in different ways, but for many people, it shows up in the form of clutter and things around you.
You're the only organizer, and I've spoken to a fair amount of professional organizers, even over the last year, and you're the only one that connects this with clutter. For you personally, chicken or the egg, which came first? Were you studying the energy release situation, the trauma connection to life, or did it start out as, I want to be an organizer, I think that's really cool, and then notice a connection?
It was the energy tools first. And actually, it's kind of a surprise that I landed on the energy tools at all. I've been in engineering school. I'm kind of a little closet nerd. And the fact that that whole, woo side of explaining or dealing or interacting with life would appeal to me was kind of a surprise. We certainly didn't talk about the energy side of things in engineering school. So I think I learned those tools first. Then I learned, I've always had a thing about organizing. I've done it for friends, and that's been my thing. And then probably about 3 years ago, a little download, I guess, if you want to call it, just a little voice in my mind that said, you're gonna open an organizing business, and then you're going to open an energy release business. And at the time that I heard that download, I thought that it was 2 separate businesses. But as time went on, it became very evident that they were the same business, that I would use these energy tools to help people that were stuck in these clutter loops, that were just kind of demoralized and overwhelmed by all the physical things around them.
Now, it's not to say that other organizers don't recognize the energy connection, but they don't focus on the changes that it's going to make. They might know, hey, it's better for you to declutter and organize your living or workspace, but that's not the main goal. It's more of like, let's get you decluttered here. Where yours is, what I detect, that's really part of the goal. That is it.
Right.
Change your life.
Right. Well, most organizers don't have these tools. These tools actually were never meant to be shared in business. They were never meant to be proclaimed to the world. These were the things that I was learning for myself, and they were benefiting and blessing me. I didn't have an intention at that time to do this for other people or for clients. But I think there's this pervasive idea out there that if you've got stuck emotion, that you've got to go to therapy or a psychologist is the way to kind of alleviate that pain for you. And I'm of the belief, I believe in a creator, and these emotions that we have, I mean, we're hardwired for these emotions. I personally believe that we would just never be sent to this plane to experience these emotions without hundreds of ways to release them. I address two of the ways to release, but there are many more ways out there. And it's not just you go to a therapist and you talk about it, or you go to a psychologist and talk about it, and then perhaps there's medication that helps alleviate that pain point for you.
Gotcha.
So
And
it doesn't require therapy to let this negative stuff go.
yeah, but it's the education. We don't know. I didn't, and I dealt with psychics, worked with psychics, launched the career of some of the biggest ones that you'll ever know in terms of media. So I knew there was an energy thing going on, but I never really dug deep into it until, just like you, I felt I needed to. And that's where I started learning more about it. And then all the stuff came clear. Oh, that's how that's working. That's how they do that. Or that's why I do that. Before we get into some of this energy stuff that we're talking about, the release and all, let's dive into the six myths that other organizers will tell you.
Right. This is where I get to be a little snarky and, do my thing. So I have six myths that other organizers, I see these in blogs. I see this, I talk about Marie Kondo. She's this cute little Japanese lady from early 2000s who had a TV show. It was all about organizing. In fact, the National Association for Productivity and Organizing, kind of the governing board, if you will, for professional organizers, they recognize her method. It's called the KonMari method. And so you've got this whole method connected to Marie Kondo and how she approached organizing. And so when I saw that, that's kind of when I got a little sarcastic. So anyway, the six myths are these. Number one, that you tidy all at once. That is a tenet of the KonMari method. The second one is that you embrace minimalism and simplify life. Yeah, maybe. The next one is this one in, one out rule. I talk about that one. Sparking joy, again, that's another KonMari method shows up. I like to dump all over that one. Regular, consistent maintenance sounds great. It's kind of a myth. Let's see, two more. Oh no, just one more. Labeling everything. Yeah, that one's kind of easy, right? Like if you label it, then it's organized, and that's really not what it is at all. You can actually clutter things up with the labels.
I'm with you on that. And I'm trying to look at it from another view of, all right, but labeling isn't such a bad idea. But if you haven't purged and organized, the labels aren't going to do anything for you.
Right. Right. Or labeling becomes the litmus test of whether or not you're organized. Labeling really, you remember where your stuff is. Labeling is really for the other members of the household. So if you've got like one or two people in charge of the household, I'm thinking more along the lines of like parents and children. So you label it for the children, or you label it for the person who can't really, remember where things go. But for yourself, you don't need those labels. But then the label becomes the crutch. So I've got a label, therefore I'm organized.
Yeah, no. And I get it. I'm thinking of my garage, which is fairly organized. But then again, I only moved, yeah, like not even 2 years ago. So
Oh, so you thin down.
I
You thin
think
down in there.
totally. And if I need to find something, I know where it is. Maybe if it's not this box, it's the one right next to it, which I didn't label them. I could have took a Sharpie and wrote on them. I didn't. So yeah, I totally get that. What's the one in and one out?
The one in and the one out rule. So that it's based on this thing where you get everything set up and then you track it. The thing about this rule, so like if you buy a new item of clothing, then another item of clothing needs to go out. That kind of thing. People get caught up in the rigor of the one out and the one in rule. So it kind of you become paralyzed, that you bring in another type of unwanted emotion in this with the frustration or
Hmm.
the regiment of it. So it doesn't it the problem I have with it is that it doesn't really match life. While we want life to be structured and regimented and follow a system, it doesn't. Life is up, it's down, it's very fluid. And so this one in, one out rule becomes something that can bind people up. It ends up being a pinch point rather than something that helps people out. The other thing is, when you purchase things like, I don't know, paper towels, and that's the other thing. You can have 4 rolls of paper towels that have gone out that you've used, but what happens if you want to buy 8 rolls of paper towels? Now you've thrown the whole system off. And so it's a very regimented way of approaching organization that kind of misses the mark. So
Hmm.
I kind of bag on that in my ebook.
All right, I'm gonna grab your hand and we're gonna jump down a rabbit hole right now.
Let's go.
All right,
I like these rabbit holes with you, Steve. This is awesome.
happy landing.
Woohoo.
We're down. When you and I'm gonna riff off of the one in, one out, and
Okay.
we're gonna focus on clothing.
Yeah.
We'll look at it that way. When you, regardless of whether it's one in or one out, but that inspired my thought on this. When you get rid of things, especially clothing, are you releasing emotion just by getting rid of articles of clothing?
Sometimes, yes.
Hmm.
Yes. The other thing that you can do is you can kind of like stir up some stuff as well. So sometimes our articles of clothing represent a period of life, a phase of life, a period of time that was either happy and joyful or not happy and not joyful. And so the movement of those things can actually stir stuff up. So while the closet may have more room for things and things may be a little bit easier in there, emotionally, you've got some stuff going on.
So, how do you make the determination of what to get rid of? And again, we're going to focus on clothing because just for the reason you said that, let's say you have some articles of clothing, you went through a bad relationship, you remember wearing some of those articles of clothing during could have been happy times, but maybe it didn't end on a good point, whatever.
Right.
Should you just get rid of that stuff? And if you're holding on to it, not for the reason sentimentally, but because maybe I'll wear it again. I kind of like those jeans, that shirt, whatever. Haven't worn it in forever, but you never know. I might, I still fit in it. Should you just say, get rid of it?
Well, I like to use my tools on this. So most people, they can make the easy choice. So if there's a closet full of clothes, yes, no, they can make that easy decision. My rule is if you hesitate for more than 3 seconds, we're going to put it aside and we're going to come back to it. With that pile of clothes that you hesitated on, I'll use muscle testing to help the client know whether or not to keep it or not. And so that's based on the premise that the muscles are strong in the presence of truth or anything that promotes health or well-being. Conversely, the muscles are weak. So I'll have a client hold an article of clothing, and then they'll hold it in one hand, and I'll use the other arm, and I'll apply a gentle pressure. If the arm gives or if it's weak, and the client can feel it. That's the beautiful part about muscle testing is I don't have to say anything. The person feels it. If the muscle gives and it's weak, then it's really not in their best interest to keep it. We thank it for whatever, and then we move it along. So I don't even have to make those hard decisions. I use muscle testing to help work clients through those articles of clothing that, like you said, there's a weird emotional attachment. They're kind of tricky.
Mm. And I believe it goes back to what I believe, and I believe you believe that we have the answers in us.
Yeah.
We know what the answer is. Apply it to this. Why am I holding on to that shirt? Am I holding on to it because I feel it makes me look good?
Right.
Or am I holding on to it for sentimental reasons? But those reasons aren't really supporting me now. I've moved on. Life is different, whatever it might be. Um, the muscle testing you can do for anybody, anywhere.
Yeah, I can do it in person and I can do it remotely. I like to do it in person because then I'm not telling you anything. That person is experiencing it. But muscle testing uses the body to bypass the ego mind. The ego mind is the part that's almost always on.
Hmm.
And it doesn't always have our best interest at heart. It bypasses the unconscious mind. We call it the true self or the higher self or the knowingness. And that's the part of you that's connected to the divine. That's the part of you that's connected to all of the people. And that's the part of you that knows exactly, if this is in your best interest to keep or if it's not. And so that's why we use the muscle testing to just bypass um, the ego mind.
Wow. Um, we've identified these myths. I love the little tips that you give. The insight. Muscle testing is, that's over to the side here. That's
Right.
completely different, but very effective. Any other tips that you have while we're talking about organizing?
Sure.
I love them. They're
Because
great.
in this way, I do hang out with my regular organizer peers because there are principles of organization. Some of us have these inherently, some of us learn these, but yeah, they're just standard principles of organization. So the first one I would say that's the most important is you want to group things together. So in your closet, since we're talking about the clothing, um, and these groupings, this is what can be customized. But do you want all of your long sleeve shirts all together, or do you want all of your short sleeve shirts together, or do you want all of a certain style, so all of your dress shirts together, then all of your casual shirts together? So you group things by whatever label you want to assign, like purpose or color or fabric or weather. Those are, or season, I guess that's a better word.
Hmm.
So you can group them like that. The next principle that's always really important is you want to keep things close to where you use them. In a kitchen, this is especially important. We
Hmm.
call this point of use. And so if you're always at the island prepping the food, you don't want the utensils, the knives, all of those things that you use for food prep. You don't want those in a different part of the kitchen. You want those close. And so when you set up these systems, those are the little things that you want to keep in mind, grouping like things together and then keeping them at that point of use.
Hmm.
So that's just a couple of the little principles that we
Yeah. And
use.
I'm not perfect, but I find myself doing them already. Again,
Yeah.
I only moved in the last less than 2 years, but even in my bedroom, I have my short sleeve shirts over here. I have longer sleeve over here. I have dressier over here next to it. I'll put even my jeans. I have darker jeans, lighter jeans. I'll try and group them together. Crappy jeans are over here. Yeah.
Right?
No, the ones
The
you put on the
paint clothes, they go in a separate corner.
exactly. Yeah. Um, but I try to do that initially, just for that reason, so I know where to go, where to put it. Sometimes it's a little bit of a hassle after you do laundry. You got to, put it back in the same spot. But isn't it true? Once you get in the habit of doing this stuff, it's like autopilot. You just do it.
Oh, for sure. In fact, we had a situation. So I have two biological daughters. And then in 2013, we brought in two more children, teenagers, for adoption. And so our household doubled, our number
Wow.
of children doubled. And we had a silverware drawer. It had been in that drawer for 10 years, 11 years. And then, our family size changed. So I moved the silverware to a different drawer. I still will go to the original silverware drawer to find the silverware, and it hasn't been there since 2013. So are we creatures of habit? I'm going to go with, yeah, we totally are creatures of habit.
Wow. I'm going to share this because it makes me laugh. And I've told this story before, real briefly. You triggered me with silverware. So went through a divorce, not a great situation, long story, but
Sure.
whatever. And my ex took a bunch of stuff, including the silverware. It wasn't even discussed. I'm like, really? Okay,
Yeah.
great. This is the universe at work. I had a bar. I created this, sort of like a fun room, and it looked like a sports bar. I go to move the bar. I'm going to put it in storage. Dropping out of the bottom of it were two complete trays of silverware. I don't even know where they came from. I'm like, oh, great. I got silverware now. And
I think that's perfect.
it's
That's
almost like
awesome.
the universe is saying, oh, yeah, all right, we got you. And
Yeah,
here you
totally
go.
covered.
And I still use it to the day. But I got you on going back to the same drawers because once you establish it, you're autopiloting going back. It's
Yeah.
it seems what I'm detecting from you, establish these things in the beginning. And once you have a good organizational foundation, then you just keep going back to it. You keep going back
Right.
to it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it absolutely does. And this is what all organizers will do, or most organizers will do. They will create a system for you. Some will customize this system, and those systems are workable. They're solid systems. If you're not adhering to this system, that's where I come in. There's something that's interrupting your adherence, your ability to adjust to the new system. Usually that's the negative emotion. So yeah, organizers are
Mhm.
great at creating systems. And mostly these systems work. But if you continue to go back, no matter what the system that's been put in place is, that's when you start looking at, wait, what's the obstacle here? What's keeping me from assimilating into this new pattern?
Final question, and
Sure.
it kind of goes back to the beginning. When we talk about this thing, negative emotion, we talked about it before, but if somebody's just checking out us today, what
Yeah.
is a negative emotion?
So the happy emotions, the emotions that like love and joy, they don't get stuck. You experience that, you relish that, you'll hold on to that in your memory, but it doesn't get you stuck. It is a painful emotion that will get you stuck. And it's usually the thing that we have to say about a painful event. That's actually what's going to get you stuck. It's not really the painful event, but like we're hardwired for emotion, we're also hardwired to avoid pain. And so we'll say things, we'll create things, we'll make up things, even though we don't realize we're doing it. But we'll do this to kind of smooth over the pain.
Hmm.
So that's the thing that gets stuck is that painful stuff and the things that we have to say about a painful event or an uncomfortable event.
And when we say the emotion is stuck, what do we mean?
It replays over and over and over again. So I gave an example before of where I stubbed my toe and it hurt. And what I had to say about that event was, I'm so stupid. I'm so clumsy. I'm always doing this stuff. And that's the thing that will replay. You'll continue to bump into things. You'll continue to find yourself where you're getting hurt or you're in situations where you feel stupid or you feel dumb or it just continues over and over again because why this always happens to me. So you'll subconsciously create it.
Hmm. So, for
It's
example,
fascinating.
like, yes, even what you're saying here, uh, stub my toe again. I'm such a klutz.
Why do I always do this? Yeah.
And so
Well, and you'll
you're going to
continue
do
to
it.
do
You
it until you
continue to
move it
do it.
out.
It's be careful what you ask for. Cliche,
Right.
but that's what we're talking about here.
That's
Um,
exactly it.
love all of this. And for anybody that is stuck or disorganized and doesn't know why, there is a reason and it's got an emotional attachment to it. How do we find you?
You can find me on the socials. My handle is @built-to-be-visible. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Have a website. It's www.built-to-be-visible.com. And you can always call me. It's 480-221-8874.
Put the silverware in the right drawer the first time.
Or your husband will put a Homer Simpson piece of paper in there to remind you, don't, you got it wrong every time.
There you go. Emily, thanks so much. We'll talk next time, okay?
Thanks, Steve.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.